Prompt number 7 is what being on code really looks like. What being on code looks like. This takes us to a YouTube video. Let's take a watch.
The World Cup's happening, and people around the world not fans of Israel's oppression of the Palestinians. So there is a bunch of people refusing to see television at the World Cup. You want to see it?
Channel is this?
Israel channel. You don't.
Channel is this?
Israel channel. You don't like us?
That's it.
Palestine, no Israel. Sorry, please. You are not welcome here. Even if this is Qatar, this is our country. You are not welcome here. There is only Palestine. There is no Israel.
You are not welcome here. This is our country. You are not welcome here. That's the Israeli reporter. Boy, he's
Yes. For Israel.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Why? Arabic.
They're not talking to them. They're not talking to them. Because Israel's an apartheid state and they oppress the Palestinians. They kill them in broad daylight. Let's see what's that.
We are from Israel. Israel.
Israel.
Yeah. Hey, new friend. What? We have peace.
Israel, no Palestinian. Israel, no Palestinian.
But we have peace. Peace. You sign peace.
So it sounds like the Israeli journalists show, no, peace, we're friends. No, they're like, no, F you, we're with the Palestinians.
You sign peace. You sign peace. You signed on the peace agreement.
So this guy, the reporter says, hi, I'm from Israel. The fan says, there is no such thing as Israel, only Palestine. Reporter, yes, there is. Hey, how's it going? You from Lebanon? Yes, I'm from Israel. You're from Israel? What are you doing here? Free Palestine. Reporter, you say Palestine, I say Israel. Fan, no, Israel doesn't exist. Iran fans draped this guy with a hat and a scarf. Even the Israelis found it funny. So I guess this is the Israeli reporter, and then let's watch.
כן, תראו, שמו עליי פה משקפיים, זה פחות או יותר לבל הטירוף שהיה, אבל כאילו, אין דרך להסביר בכלל את מה שהלך באצטדיון, והקהל מהמקרה דפוק.
In case you think Israeli reporters are victims, I can gladly make a threat of Israelis not just ignoring Arab journalists, but actively harassing them on air. This week, Israelis chanted death to Arabs at this person while on air for France. Let's watch.
نعلم بأن هذه سليخة نخلو بالشدور يشير أنت معبر لي زوز مكو
كل عربي يروح لرشا كل عربي يروح لرشا
زوز مكو
لا רוצה
والله אני בעבודה
לא מעניין אותי
אתה מפריע אותי
לא מעניין אותי
يلا زوز مكو بلغتنا العربية بلغت
عربي
سنعود إليك مهني. شكرا جزيلا لك. سنكتفي بهذا القدر ونعتذر عن سوء الأخلاق.
Israeli forces deliberately killed Palestinian American journalist. Report shows. It's from The Intercept. A new forensic analysis proves that an Israeli sniper could see that Shireen Abdul Akela was a journalist before firing the bullet that killed her. Of course, they shoot children on purpose. They shoot reporters and journalists all the time. And then we pretend to care about free speech and journalism when Trump is mean to Jim Acosta. So there you go. That was kind of fun to watch those people not talk to the Israeli journalists in favor of Palestine. Hope you enjoyed it. Hey, everybody, we're doing live stand-up shows Los Angeles at the Two Roads Theater, December 9th, 6th.
Jimmy must have the worst stand-up appearances, the worst shows. In the chat, Trigger Happy 262 Plus says, "Yeah, I saw this. LOL. Arabs are very staunch on their position when it comes to Palestine, and there is a strong kinship with that." Trigger Happy 262 says, "Also, this World Cup, sad my country got eliminated, but it is what it is." Where's Trigger Happy 262 from? Costa Rica or something? Ghana. It's probably the first time I've seen black people support North Africa. Those same North Africans say they are quote unquote Arab. Lastly, he says the imbalance is very funny. Like, you are trying to be inclusive of them, but they are saying they are Arab. And it's weird because some of these North Africans try to say African and Arab, which is weird. With that said, Marcus Garvey is the way. What did you see there?
Yeah, I think it was good that the Palestinians were, as you said, on code, and the people that were not Palestinians, because we already know the situation with Israel and Palestine is not a fair one. I wish that our people would do that, but we're busy, at least from the American point of view, inviting people to cookouts. We'll curse and demean each other for the slightest things, but very, very quick to invite a pale face to a cookout and celebrate their Thanksgiving holidays and all this stuff, and try to rationalize these things. If we were on code, a lot of things should happen, but I don't think it would happen. I think we're more likely to want to find the good white person more so than anything else and give them grace more so than we even give each other. So the Palestinians and the people that support Palestine at least are there. I wish we would support Libya, but it always bothers me that ADOS and FBA talk about, oh, the Africans didn't come save us and all that stuff. But these are modern times. Why ain't nobody going to go save Libya? Yeah, why? With knowledge and information, we're not going to be on code and save our other people, or at least openly defend them. Even the Haitians. I mean, we may have disagreed with what FBA said, but as a collective, I don't think we voiced our opinions loud enough on Haiti and supporting Haiti. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for that. Gas them up. What being on code looks like. What say you?
I don't know what this has to do with being on code. Personally, I don't have a dog in the fight. That's whatever goes on in the Middle East. Who cares? That's their business. I'm not interested in their books and their anything. There's just too much stuff going on in Africa that that I can be interested in. So, I mean, are they saying that because all the Muslims are, in support of Palestine, that's a code? Perhaps. But yeah, like I said, I don't have a dog in that fight, so I'm not really too worried about whatever goes on in the Middle East. That's their problem. They got to figure that out. They got nothing to do with us as Africans. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that has to do with being on code, but yeah, I'm just not a fan of anything from the Middle East.
Yeah, well, I think the prompt, I think the prompt is just basically saying, look at the actions of these people, how they protect their nationalities, etc. And I guess the idea is that, well, are we even doing that?
But that's the problem. But that's what I'm saying. The problem is that there's no such thing as an Arab, right? These are colonized buffoons themselves. I'm not dissing anybody, right? But there's, somebody in a particular region, they had a revelation allegedly, and then they just went all around the world by force, and you gave up your language, you gave up your culture to be a part of this stuff. It's universalism. It's problematic, and at least the Africans in the diaspora, can still remember their Africanness and certain African markers. These people, I feel bad for them. They don't have a clue who they are before the Abrahamics or one of the Abrahamics came and touched them and forced them to speak this language and adapt this custom. So if they're on code because of that, that's great. But there's no ethnic or genetic concept of being an Arab unless you're Qurayshi, right? So it's shameful and it's sad that somebody from Morocco would, I'm Arab. No, you're not. Go find out who you were before those people came there. But they're so thoroughly screwed and finished that they won't even look into that. So I'm not impressed by that as a code because I know it's problematic in of itself. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Sorry, Mike was muted. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I still believe that there is a response that can be given, based on what we saw and paralleling it to, whether or not that's a real thing, Arabism is real or not. I just think it's about the parallel. They're doing this outcome, and as a matter of fact, it actually strengthens the argument because if Arab is not really a real thing, but yet they still adhere to something in that's what we can call a code. I mean that's something to even look at even a little bit stronger in a sense, versus are we doing the same? Brittany Griner goes to jail, and I'm guilty of it too. Brittany Griner goes to jail. I'm like, yeah, she was a dumbass. You know what I mean? Whereas
but you don't have. But remember, you don't share anything with her. Remember, these people are brainwashed, so they share religion. What I don't want to offend anyone's religion. I try not to do that, but they share religion and they share language. I don't share anything with Brittany Griner other than skin color. Brittany Griner doesn't have anything in common with me other than the white man would equally put us on a tree and hang us. I have nothing in common with Brittany Griner, as far as I know, right? So it's different, and that's what I'm saying. That's where it's like, okay, we need a code, sure, but then how are we going to create the code? The departure point for the code of the unity or that cultural unity, and there has to be a similarity. There has to be similitude. If that's the word I'm looking for. There has to be mirroring. There has to be behavior. There has to be all these things. So being Arab is a universalist doctrine, right? So everyone prays at the same time. You all face Mecca. The women have to be covered up. The men conduct themselves. They all must speak Arabic. They do business a certain way. So just like with the clock, like I talk about with Pavlov, they too are under a hypnosis, a mass hypnosis that they follow. So I get what you're saying, like, oh yeah, with Brittany Griner stuff, but I don't have anything. What do I share with Brittany Griner other than skin color? And so that's what I'm saying. So blackness, if it's just skin color, then it's a very weak form of, identification. It has to be something stronger than that. And we haven't defined it, in my opinion.
All right. In the chat, Trick Gabby 262 says, we need find the characteristics strong enough to rally amongst each other too. They seem, I guess the Arabs seem to have those factors, and that's why they have a stronger collective. He says, I've been trying to get into Pan-Arabist discourses to investigate. They say Arab isn't really a genealogical thing. They say that Arab is merely a language and culture thing, not a race thing. He goes on to say, I feel personally that it gets wishy-washy because I know these fools won't consider a Sudanese to be Arab, and they predominantly speak just Arab. Afro-Native World says it affects Africa, though. Think of all the Islamized Africans who think they're Arab, like those in the Sudan. He says, which caused South Sudan to become its own country. Bwana Hagaziki, what say you about this video, what being on code looks like?
For me, I see a lot of code in this video because I don't think that they are coming together in terms of pan-Arabism. I think that they are coming together in terms of pan-Islamism, you know, if that's a word. But I think that they are coming together based on a basis of being so-called one ummah, one body. And I think that these people from their respective countries, they see themselves in sharing a so-called brotherhood with the people of Palestine. So I think that for me, you know, on the face of it, it seems apparent to me that they have a particular ideology. You know, whether we could debate about whether the ideology is correct or not, or the religious nature of it is correct or not. But I think that they have a particular view that is unified, you know, and even Black Africans, whether they're on the continent and even in the West, would share the same views as many of these people who have this pan-Islamic view of the world. And I think that there is something within that, because if you put a microphone in the face of the regular Black person on the street in the West or in Africa, they have a varying different views on different particular subjects, you know, even if it's in the interest or against the interest. And I find it funny that these people who are coming from different parts of the world, Islamic world, have a shared view that is not necessarily among us, because we see ourselves all manner of different things, and that's what makes us weak in the world. And whether you want to agree with it or not, their position is much stronger than ours is, unfortunately, because we see ourselves as so separate and distinct. So I think that this is the code that I see with this particular video.
Untouchable, what do you say to Trigger Happy 262 comment up on the screen?
No, not all Arabic people are Muslims. There are many, and I think and there becomes a difficulty because the start of the religion is not where the religion is right now. There are many Arabs that exist in the world who are Christians, in fact, and there are many, but the religion doesn't stop at just being Arabic. The religion spreads across the entire globe. So, like I say, you would have people who would have views that are consistent with the Muslim world. And there are many Palestinians, they may not be Islamists, but they don't want to be oppressed. And the world see, even though they're not, the Palestinians may not be Muslims, not all Palestinians are Muslims, the world see the Palestinian nation as predominantly Muslims. So they have a shared view with them, even though within Palestine itself, not all Palestinians are Muslims. You know, we tend to take the people who are in the minority and consider, okay, well, these groups of people are not Muslims, so why do they have a shared view? No, people look at the world based on the basis of numbers, you know, and the majority of people in Palestine are Muslims. You know what I mean? And the world looks at them on the basis of that. And that's how they judge and assess things. So I don't consider it to be Arabism. I consider it to be an Islamic issue, a religious issue. Just like the majority of people in the Americas are Christian, even though they are.
But Untouchable, don't you see the problem in what you just said? In my opinion, you said the majority of the world, and really, so this is where we can get intellectual, right? We have to do that because basically you're saying other people's gaze, the gaze that other people use to look upon us, is what determines who we are. And that's the problem of the world. The Western gaze has determined and controlled the world. So the West looks at us and says, you're niggers, you're Africans, you're this. And we never reject it. We say, yes, whatever you tell me I am, I am. At a certain point, we got to say, wait a minute. You say that's who I am. I know who I am. Now, again, I'm not saying that you know, I can go in the middle of Mississippi or some parts of upstate New York and say, well, I'm not black, I'm a Moor, I'm Nubian, I'm this, and they still won't hang me from the tree. No one's saying that. But what I am saying is that just because they can hang me from the tree doesn't mean I need to accept their definition of me. And I think that's the problem. So yeah, because the outside world looks at all of them and says they're all, you know, Arabic, they must all be Muslim, not understanding that Egypt has a large Christian population, Lebanon has a large Christian population. There are parts of the Arabic world where the people are not Muslim. And so they don't engage with Islam in that way. Right? So, you know, and then even within Islam, are you Sunni? Are you Shia? Right? Even amongst Hebrews, are you Sephardic? Are you Ashkenazi? Are you from the, you know, whatever regions that exist there, the Arab Hebrews that were there? So these are things that we have to contend with, right? Because Ashkenazi Jewish culture, which is what we assume is Hebrew culture, because that's all we see in America. If you dropped an Ashkenazi in Sephardic Judea, they'd be like a fish out of water.
Yeah, but
you know, they speak Yiddish.
What I'm saying,
They speak,
what I'm
you get what I'm
saying
saying?
is if the yes, but what I'm saying is if the world approaches the government of Palestine, they are going to approach the Hamas government. The Hamas government is elected by the majority, well, the people who vote in Palestine, the majority of the people who voted these people into power. That government is a Muslim one. I mean, even though within that government, within that particular area, there exist people who are Christian. There exist people from all walks of life who may not necessarily adhere to the Islamic faith. You know, but the reason why the world is going to approach them as that is collectively, you know, on a political level, they have decided that we want a Muslim government in place, Hamas. So we're gonna approach these guys in an Islamic fashion because the majority of the people who would have voted would have elected a Muslim government in office. This is the reason why the world looks at them in that way. Now we could break these groups down into to different enclaves and say, well, these people are Christian Palestinians, these people are Muslim Palestinians, but the world isn't looking. I mean, we don't operate in that basis. I mean, I wish we could. We don't operate in that basis. We operate on the basis as far as the so-called democracy goes, which the Palestinians as a group of people have decided to take that avenue to say, well, we're going to practice democracy, and in a democracy, the largest amount of people get to dictate what happens within a constituency. So they have decided among themselves that we want an Islamic state. Therefore, they should be approached as Muslims, even though Christians exist in that space. You know what I mean? And it's not to dismiss the minorities that exist there, but I'm just saying, as a government, this is who they say who they are collectively. You understand what I'm saying or no? Hello?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I'm telling you that, you know, I there's two types of the you know, we're trapped, right? So on one hand, we have to deal with what people who have power think about us, and then we also have to define who we are, and that's what I'm saying. So if the code is shared oppression, then yeah, we need to be all shouting "Free Brittany Griner." But you see, the difference is that that's a weak. Okay, blackness compared to what they have, if what you're saying, right, being pan-Arab, pan-Islamic, is a much stronger unifier than just oppressed blackness. And that's why I'm saying the code is weak, because what people are saying the code should be is just shared oppression. Nothing more, nothing less. But these people have prayer, they have food, they have everything that comes with it. So they can afford to have a code.
But my position is not shared oppression at all. I see myself at one with my brothers in Nigeria. You might disagree with this. For people who are billionaires, I see myself with this on the same position with the leadership inside in terms of the people in the Caribbean who run in countries. I see myself in terms of power, not powerlessness. Now, I do.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying how you see yourself. No, you're not understanding what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's nothing cultural that you share that you can identify that you're doing right now. Again, right? We have music and things like that, and there's food, right? I can point to those things, but I'm saying that there's nothing that is tying you in terms of your day-to-day behavior that you can look and say instant connection. They can look and speak Arabic amongst themselves, even if they're not, for example, Muslim or Christian, but being Arab and that shared language helps them out, so they can have that as an identification. Or they can look at the religion that they share as a shared identification. And if they have both, now they have the double whammy. They have the whopper, right? They have the double whopper, and so they're good. If all you have, or if all we have is the white man will hang us from the tree, and that's it, then Brittany Griner is not my people. She's just somebody who I'm also going to be at the end of the, the tree swinging from the rope with. That's it. So it has to be more. There has to be. Does that make sense?
Yes, and what I would say to that is the only reason
after Untouchable, let's get Bakari in, all right?
Okay, so the only reason I would say that what you say has some truth or validity to it is because my culture has not been defined. And let me explain that. If me or most West Indian people would go to any part of West Africa, there would be so many similarities. It would almost be something that is indistinguishable. I could bet you that. The difference is where you all have defined these things, because we have been taken away, we have not. So what y'all would call a particular thing, we may practice something, but we have not yet to define it. That's what takes our cut. That's why we have been. We are practicing a nameless culture, whereas in the West Africa, y'all are practicing a culture that y'all could name, and it would be distinct, where it's not necessarily distinct for West Indians and in the Caribbean. That's the only thing. But even though we practice West African culture every day in the Caribbean, I bet you.
Bakari.
Yeah, he just stopped talking. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First off, I'll say I don't know what getting on code is. I'm just being honest. And second off, I absolutely disagree with what Gasm Up said. Why do we have to look and say, well, this is what they have to keep them tied together? So what? We have something different to tie us together. So what? If our oppression around the world and the way we have been treated by the rest of the world, if that's what ties us together, that's what ties us together. We don't have to be like other people where they have a religion and they have their language. It doesn't make a difference. That's what tied them together. We talking about what tied us together. It seemed like some people don't want to be together because we look for a reason why we shouldn't be together, right? Our blackness, us being African, that's what tie us together. Yep, what we've been through, what we've been fighting, the oppression, everybody coming together to try to get out of this nonsense that we have been through. That's what tie us together, right? So that's why when I say I don't know what being on code is, I absolutely live by a code. So if it's the oppression that tied me, a brother from Mississippi, with people from Long Island, New York, black folks from Long Island, New York, who've been through oppression, who white folks burned his house down when he moved in the neighborhood in about 2015, 2016. If that's what ties us together, that's what ties us together. It doesn't make a difference. People will look for reasons why we shouldn't be together, because if you come together, that means once you come together, now you got to fight together, and they're going to have to fight everybody that they look up to. And you can't fight nobody that they look up to who they think is stronger. Well, because they have a religion, or they may have a language, or maybe, okay, we lost our language, but we didn't lose who we were. Our ancestors knew where we came from. They didn't tell us we were African. Our ancestors said we were African. That's why they had so much stuff here named they called African. And you can go back, I can just name one rebellion where people created a free African society here during slavery in New Africa, Mississippi in the late 1700s. They couldn't find their ships to get back to Africa. So when they settled in an area where they were, they named it themselves, New Africa. So that's what tied us together. So to say, oh, we can't be tied together off oppression, that's absolutely wrong. What we are looking for, something perfect to say it's going to tie us together. What tie Orientals together, since we use another, what tied them together to make them want to build together? Just who they are, what they've been through, and them wanting to see their people do better. What tied white people together? They wanted power. They got different religions, they got different languages, but they had something in common. They wanted power. And even though through all their fighting and bickering with one another, they still fight us. What tied them Arabs together? Regardless if they're Christian or they're Muslim, they're Arab, and they're tired of certain people coming, trying to take their stuff. They're still over there fighting over they're still over there fighting over land that they claim was theirs from the Bible and the Quran. Because one is a Christian and one is a Muslim, they still gonna be tied together by Islam and Christianity. It's because it's the same shit. And all the Muslims got to know the Bible because it come before the Quran. So they still have their religion that's tying them together. We don't have a religion. We have what we have been through in this world. And that what's tied us together. But we would rather break off and say, well, this is me. I'm from this tribe, or I'm from that tribe. And when it comes, that's why I tell people all the time, Black people claiming an ethnicity. This is my ethnicity. It is not good for Black people because of the position that we're in. Because once you break it down to ethnicity in our cultures, it's going to be different. I'm going to be different than people from New York. I'm going to be different. We don't talk the same. Probably don't eat the same foods. If we do, we cook it a little different. We do different shit. I like the country. They like to see our culture, our music. The blues ain't like that in New York because the blues come from down south, come from Mississippi. So they didn't have the juke joints up there. We got juke joints down here. So the stuff we do is going to be different. Our culture going to be different. So because our culture is different and we speak a little different, and I know that people from New York wanted to say they spoke good English. Shit, we down south, we just speak how we speak. We ain't give a damn what people called it. We knew who the enemy was. You understand? From time. See, because people like to say the civil rights movement created integration. They've been so-called somewhat integrated up north. So they thought they were better than us because they could go to school. Some of them was going to school with white folk. We wasn't going to school with white folk. So our culture is going to be different. So now when it comes down to it, with me being from Mississippi and somebody being from New York, we ain't going to be the same. So then we're going to start breaking ourselves down into more and more smaller groups because the people that telling you we don't have nothing to tie us together is the people that don't want to fight the people that have divided us. So I stick with whatever it is that ties together. So what if it's oppression, if it's suppression, if it's what we go through economically around the world, if we go because of our being at the bottom of society in every way, whatever it is that ties together, that's what ties together. And that's what we need to work on, build on our similarities. Now you get the mic.
There's a lot of comments in the chat from Trigger Happy in particular. You guys listen to the playback, and you guys who are in the chat could read his comments. I'll put them up on the screen. But I'd like to hear you guys respond to Brother Bakari. So whoever wants to respond to Bakari, go ahead.
I personally claim it all. I all of it. I claim the oppression. But I also claim the music. I claim the ability to survive. I claim the ability to thrive. I claim the food. I claim all of it. There is a YouTube video right now on internet if you're all interested. which Corey Harris. He is a blues player from the Mississippi, I think. You know, in terms of what he was talking about, he met with a guy from Mali, Ali Fakatoure. They said, and he went to Mali and he's sitting under a tree. Ali Fakatoure comes from a culture of musicians. I can't remember the term that they use for it, but he is playing blues music, his form of blues music in Mali, Africa, with Corey Harris, and they playing the same friggin' music. He said, "Y'all take my." He's like, "Y'all brought our music with y'all from Mali to the Mississippi." He's like, "Well," and they sing in French, and it's crazy because they having a conversation in French. He's like, "This is the same music. We practice the Africanisms, but we don't necessarily know how to define it. But I'll claim all of West Africa because I am the culmination, or whatever you want to call it, of the majority of West Africans who was in a bad situation and who came together to problem solve and thrive, because really and truly we wasn't supposed to be around here, but we proved the fact that we had a sense of resilience, you know, just like our mothers and fathers on the continent, because they had to fight off tigers, lions, and whatever, and to exist in that particular space. So we prove our resilience and our Africanness in being able to do that. We may not have the ability to define it as the West Africans do, but the fact that we have been able to practice our Africanisms in the West and thrive and do the things that we do, I couple myself with all of it. The oppression, but the resilience and the willingness of being African in the West as well. So I couple myself to all of it because the Africans on the continent are tied with oppression there as well. So there is some similarities that exist, and I wouldn't try to make a disconnection. All I would say is the fact that we may not necessarily have the ability to name it, it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have the ability to practice and do it, because we've been doing it. So I will leave it there.
Yeah, I think this is what I'm saying. Like, I think we have to go much deeper. You see, what you guys are calling whiteness is something that was invented by their elites. Whiteness didn't come from the people on the ground. Whiteness comes from their elites. They invented whiteness as a way to, as they ironically, you can see the origination of whiteness with the origination of the nation state. So as their elites are planning expansionary movement outside of Europe to bypass the Silk Road and to bypass the blockade that the Moors had on them, you can start to see, for example, Henry, Prince Henry, so-called Prince Henry from Portugal. They let his brother die in North Africa. You know, he was captured, and his brother died in prison. And the whole premise of that effectively was that the elites had made plans that they are looking to expand and take over. So as they're building so-called citizens and inventing citizenship, they have to come up with philosophies, ideologies, machineries of state, machinations of state to forge this European identity based on the nation state. So one of the best books you can read is by Benedict Anderson, Imagined Communities, or you can read From Peasants to Frenchmen. These are great books that show you that the idea of one unified France is not true. Like with Spain, people think, oh, Spanish. No, what we're talking when we say Spanish, what we really mean is Castilian, because the Castilian language was not the only form or that was spoken. You had Catalan, and they're distinct from each other to the point that if you speak the Catalonian dialect or the Catalonian language, a person from España won't understand you. So, and to this day, the people in Catalan are still trying to break away from, Isabella and Ferdinand's unification. So we have to understand that this was something that was created by their elites to take over the world and to dominate. What you're now saying is, well, black people should just somehow unify. That would mean our elites, again, if we're going to copy the West, let's copy them properly. So our elites, like the Dubois and the Booker T's and all these other people, should have been trying to find a way to do like Isabella and Ferdinand. But the problem is, who gave us the nation states that we have to begin with? They gave us the nation states. So we weren't even allowed to unify and create our own nation states to begin with. They gave us the nation states that we have. I think the only exception is Ethiopia, right? And even they are having problems right now. You have the Tigray, the Oromo, and all these other people, and all these other things that are occurring. So I'm just saying what you guys are saying. I'm not disputing it. I'm just trying to tell you that it's not a tool. If you're talking about unifying people, it has to be more than just oppression and what people go through. When you see how peasants were turned into Frenchmen, then you understand, oh, okay, they had to invent mass schooling. There's a whole psychological brainwashing that comes with that. If you don't have the resources and the ability to control people to create that unification of what we call whiteness today, how are you going to get that? And that's the problem that black unification has always had. Because it's never been, blackness is not something that we defined on ourselves. It's something that they look at us and tell us we're black, and we just accept it. I hope that makes sense to you guys.
No, I hear you.
The only okay.
No, go ahead.
No, maybe it's me, right? I might be wrong about this, but yeah, can you hear me? There's a delay.
Yeah, we got you. Go ahead.
Unfortunately,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, so yeah, as far as Castellano Spanish and the Spanish that I learned, the only difference that I see in Castellano Spanish, is if I say puedo hablar español, and they say puedo, th, puedo hablar español. So that's for me. I don't know. Like I say, there may be cultural distinctions. You know what I mean? Cultural distinctions, but that's the only kind of thing that I see in terms of the variances of the language. I might be completely wrong and off on this, but that's what I see. There may be something different, but I don't know. Maybe I might be completely wrong and off on this, but I'll leave it alone.
Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 8. We're gonna end at 2 a.m. So let's try to get through it.